Jennifer Hudson has won every major award in entertainment: Grammy, Oscar, Emmy, Tony. She's sung for presidents, performed at the Super Bowl, and built a talk show empire on one simple principle: genuine connection. She treats every guest with warmth, every conversation with care, and every moment with the joy that made her a star. But on a Wednesday afternoon that would become legendary in daytime television, Jennifer Hudson encountered something her kindness couldn't fix: a prince so convinced of his own righteousness that he couldn't recognize genuine warmth when it sat across from him. Prince Harry walked onto her stage expecting the usual American adoration, the sympathetic questions, the softball treatment he'd grown accustomed to since leaving royal life. What he got instead was a woman whose emotional intelligence made every deflection visible, and whose quick wit made every excuse sound hollow. Within 25 minutes, the Duke of Sussex would do something no guest had ever done on Jennifer's show: storm off the set, leaving behind a stunned audience and viral footage that would follow him for years. Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure you hit subscribe and smash that like button. We bring you the most explosive celebrity moments every single week. Now, let's get into what really happened that afternoon. The familiar theme music played as Jennifer emerged to enthusiastic applause. She danced briefly. She always danced. Her joy infectious, her energy filling the room before she even spoke. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. We have a very special guest today. He's a prince, a veteran, an author, and one of the most talked about people in the world. Please welcome Prince Harry. The applause was warm and genuine as Harry emerged from backstage. His smile was wide, but didn't quite reach his eyes, the expression of someone who'd learned to look pleasant whether he felt it or not. He crossed the stage, accepted Jennifer's brief hug, and settled into the guest chair with a posture that suggested he was already bracing for something. "Harry, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited." "Thanks for having me," Harry replied. But there was something flat in his tone, a guardedness that seemed premature given that nothing had happened yet. Jennifer noticed, but pressed on with her characteristic warmth. "So, you've been living in California for a few years now. How are you finding it? Are you a California boy yet?" Harry tilted his head slightly, his expression shifting to something almost condescending. "I don't really think of myself in those terms, Jennifer. California boy sounds very diminutive. I'm building a life here. That's different from adopting some regional identity." Jennifer's smile remained bright, though her eyes registered the odd response. "Of course. I just meant, are you comfortable? Do you feel at home?" "Home is wherever my family is. The geography is secondary." "That's beautiful. Family is everything." Harry nodded stiffly. "Yes, it is." There was a pause, the kind that usually didn't happen on Jennifer's show. She was accustomed to guests who opened up, who engaged, who matched her energy. Harry was giving her walls. She tried a different approach. "So, tell us what you've been working on. What's keeping you busy these days?" Harry's posture shifted, becoming slightly more animated, but also more defensive. "We're doing important work through the foundation: mental health advocacy, veterans support, environmental initiatives, the kind of substantive work that actually makes a difference." "That sounds amazing. Can you tell us about a specific project you're passionate about?" Harry sighed, a small sound that carried enormous weight. "You know, Jennifer, I get asked that question a lot. Tell us something specific, as if all the work we do can be reduced to soundbites for daytime television." The audience stirred uncomfortably. Jennifer's expression flickered with surprise but recovered quickly. "I wasn't looking for soundbites. I was genuinely curious about what matters to you. What matters to me is impact, real, lasting change, not the kind of performative activism that makes people feel good without actually solving problems." "And what does that look like for you?" "It looks like hard work that doesn't always photograph well. It looks like conversations that don't translate into viral clips. It looks like substance over spectacle." Jennifer nodded slowly. "I hear that. Substance is important, but sharing that substance helps people understand what you're doing. It inspires them to get involved. People who want to get involved can visit our website." "Sure, but we have millions of viewers right now who might not know where to start. This is your chance to bring them in." Harry's jaw tightened. "I'm not here to recruit for the foundation, Jennifer. I'm here to have a conversation." Jennifer tilted her head, her expression curious rather than confrontational. A conversation usually involves sharing, though. You tell me about your work, I respond, we go back and forth. So far, you've told me the work is important and substantive, but not what it actually is. That's not really conversation. That's more like a mission statement. The observation was gentle but precise. Harry's face reddened slightly. The work is complex. It doesn't reduce to elevator pitches. Then take your time. I'm not rushing you. Harry stared at her for a moment, clearly unused to someone who pushed back with kindness rather than hostility. He couldn't categorize her approach. She wasn't being mean, wasn't being aggressive, was just being curious. And somehow that was worse. Can we talk about something else? Jennifer shifted smoothly, her professionalism evident. Of course. Let's talk about America. You've been here for a few years now. What surprised you most about American life? Harry relaxed slightly. This seemed like safer ground. The freedom, honestly. Being able to go places without constant security protocols. Being able to make decisions without running them through multiple committees. The lack of institutional pressure. That sounds liberating. It is. It really is. I wake up every day grateful that I'm not trapped in that system anymore. Jennifer nodded thoughtfully. Trapped is a strong word. It's an accurate word. When your every move is dictated, when your entire existence is controlled by forces you can't challenge, trapped is exactly what it feels like. I imagine that was difficult, but you did have privileges too, right? The palaces, the staff, the access. Most people would consider those pretty significant benefits. Harry's expression cooled. Privilege isn't the same as freedom. You can have every material comfort and still be suffocating. The two aren't mutually exclusive. That's true, but it's also true that your version of suffering is very different from most people's. When you talk about being trapped while living in castles, some folks might find that hard to relate to. And that's the problem with public perception. People see the palaces and assume everything is wonderful. They don't see the pressure, the scrutiny, the constant criticism. They don't understand what it actually costs. Jennifer leaned forward slightly, her voice warm but probing. Help us understand then. What did it actually cost? Not in general terms, specifically. What did you give up? What did you lose? Harry shifted uncomfortably. I lost my family's support. I lost my relationship with my brother. I lost my country in many ways. But did you lose those things, or did you choose to leave them? The question hung in the air. Harry stared at Jennifer, his expression hardening. I was forced to choose between my family of birth and my family of choice. That's not really a choice. That's an ultimatum. Who gave you that ultimatum? The institution, the system, the expectations that surrounded everything. Can you be more specific? Who actually said choose? Harry's voice took on an edge. It wasn't one person. It was the cumulative effect of years of pressure, criticism, and institutional hostility. Jennifer nodded slowly. So no one specifically said leave or else. You felt the pressure and made a choice. That's a very reductive way of putting it. I'm just trying to understand. You've said you were forced out, but it sounds like you made a decision based on how things felt rather than an explicit ultimatum. Those are different things. They feel the same when you're living them. Jennifer's voice remained gentle. Maybe, but feelings aren't always facts. And when you're telling your story to the world, the distinction matters. Harry stood up slightly, then sat back down, a movement that betrayed his agitation. Are you questioning my experience? I'm asking you to clarify it. There's a difference. It sounds like questioning. If every request for clarification sounds like questioning, that might say something about the clarity of the original story. The observation landed with surgical precision. Harry's face flushed. My story is clear. I've told it extensively. In books, in documentaries, in interviews. If people don't understand it by now, that's their problem, not mine. Jennifer smiled slightly. Maybe. Or maybe the story changes depending on who's asking. Maybe the details shift based on what serves the narrative at any given moment. That would also explain why people might be confused. My story doesn't change. Doesn't it? In your book, you describe certain events one way. In the Oprah interview, some of those same events sounded different. In the Netflix documentary, there were new details that hadn't appeared before. That's a lot of variation for a clear story. Harry's voice rose slightly. Details aren't the same as the fundamental truth. No, but when details keep changing, people start wondering about the fundamental truth, too. People can wonder whatever they want. I know what happened. And we only know what you've told us, which keeps changing. You understand why that might create skepticism. Harry pointed at Jennifer, his composure cracking. You're doing exactly what the British press does, questioning my credibility instead of engaging with my experience. Jennifer didn't flinch. Her voice remained calm, almost soothing. I'm doing what any reasonable person does when presented with multiple versions of the same story. I'm asking for clarity. That's not attack, that's interest. And the fact that you can't tell the difference is concerning. The studio had gone quiet. The audience could feel the tension, could sense something unprecedented unfolding. Harry took a visible breath, trying to regain control. Let's change the subject. Happy to. How's Megan? The shift in Harry's demeanor was immediate and dramatic. Walls going up, expression closing off, entire posture becoming defensive. I'd prefer not to discuss my wife. Jennifer's eyebrows rose slightly. Really? You've discussed her extensively before. Your whole public narrative centers on your partnership. That doesn't mean I have to discuss her in every interview. Of course not, but how's your wife is pretty basic. It's what you ask anyone. If that's off limits, I'm curious why. It's not off limits, I'm just choosing not to discuss her today. That's your right, but can I ask what changed? You've done hours of television discussing your relationship, your love story, your shared struggles. Now it's suddenly private? Harry's jaw flexed. Some things should remain private. Many things should, but you've already made this particular thing public. The privacy ship has sailed. You can't invite the world into your relationship and then act surprised when the world wants updates. I can set boundaries wherever I choose. Jennifer nodded. You can, and I can notice that those boundaries seem to shift depending on whether the conversation is going your way. That's not principle, that's strategy. I don't need to be psychoanalyzed. I'm not analyzing you, I'm observing you. There's a difference, and what I observe is someone who wants to control every aspect of how they're perceived. That's exhausting, Harry, for you and for everyone around you. Harry stood up fully now, the movement sudden enough to startle the front row of the audience. I think we're done here. Jennifer remained seated, looking up at him with an expression of genuine concern rather than hostility. Are we? We've barely started. You came here for a reason, presumably to connect with an audience, to share your perspective. And now, because I've asked some direct questions, you're leaving? Your questions aren't direct, they're hostile. Which questions? I've asked about your work, your life in America, your family, and your wife. Those are literally the most basic interview questions. If they feel hostile, maybe examine why. The way you've asked them has been warm, curious, and genuinely interested. I haven't raised my voice. I haven't accused you of anything. I've simply asked you to explain things you've already said publicly. If that's too much, I'm not sure what you expected from a talk show. Harry's breathing was heavier now, his frustration visible. I expected a friendly conversation. This is friendly. Friendly doesn't mean unchallenging. I can like you and still ask you to clarify your statements. Those things aren't mutually exclusive. You don't like me. I don't know you. I'd like to. That's why I'm asking questions. But you won't answer them. You deflect, you get defensive. You invoke privacy for things you've already made public. That's not conversation, that's performance. And I don't have performers on my show. I have people. The audience stirred with murmurs of agreement. Jennifer had touched something real. The exhaustion of watching someone maintain a narrative instead of having a conversation. Harry looked around the studio, seeming to realize for the first time that the audience wasn't on his side. They were watching him with expressions that ranged from confusion to skepticism to outright disapproval. You've turned them against me. Jennifer shook her head. I haven't turned anyone against you. I've asked you questions and let you answer them. The audience is responding to your answers, not my questions. They're responding to your framing. What framing? How are you? What are you working on? How's your wife? Where's the frame in that? I've literally asked the same things I'd ask any guest. You've treated them like attacks. The audience noticed. That's not framing, that's observation. Harry grabbed his water bottle from the side table, then set it back down with unnecessary force. This was supposed to be different. I was told you were sympathetic, that you understood what it's like to be scrutinized. Jennifer's expression softened with genuine empathy, but also clarity. I do understand scrutiny. I've been in this industry for 20 years. I've been criticized for my weight, my relationships, my career choices. I know what it feels like to have people judge you constantly. She paused. But I also know the difference between unfair criticism and legitimate questions. And I've learned to engage with both without treating everyone as my enemy. You haven't learned that, Harry. And until you do, every interview is going to feel hostile to you, because you're bringing the hostility with you. I'm not hostile. You've been hostile since you sat down. Before I asked a single question, you were already defensive. You came in here expecting a fight, and when you didn't get one, you invented one. I didn't invent anything. You invented my hostility. It doesn't exist. I've been warm, curious, and patient. But none of that matters because you've decided that anyone who doesn't agree with everything you say is against you. That's not the world, Harry. That's a prison you've built for yourself. Harry's voice dropped to something cold. You have no idea what I've been through. You're right. I only know what you've told me. And what you've told me, through your words and your behavior, is that you're deeply unhappy, deeply defensive, and deeply convinced that the whole world is your enemy. I'm happy. I'm thriving. I've said that repeatedly. You've said it, but you haven't shown it. Happy people don't get angry when asked about their lives. Thriving people don't treat every question as an attack. You keep telling me you're doing well, but everything about your behavior suggests the opposite. My behavior is a response to your questions. My questions have been gentle. How are you finding California? What are you working on? How's Megan? Those are literally the kindest questions a host can ask. And you've reacted to all of them as if I'm accusing you of something. Because you are accusing me. Of what? I haven't accused you of anything. I've asked you to explain things you've said publicly. That's not accusation. That's engagement. The fact that you can't tell the difference is the whole problem. Harry grabbed his jacket from the back of his chair. I'm leaving. That's your choice. But before you go, I want to say something. Harry paused, perhaps curious despite his anger. Jennifer's voice was soft now, almost maternal. I think you're in pain, real pain. I think you've been through difficult things, and I think some of your criticism has been genuinely unfair. But I also think you've built walls so high that you can't tell the difference between enemies and friends anymore. I'm not your enemy, Harry. I wasn't trying to hurt you. I was trying to understand you, and you made that impossible. You don't understand. I wanted to. You didn't let me. Every time I reached for connection, you pulled back. Every time I asked for clarity, you accused me of attacking. That's not my failure. That's yours. Harry stared at her, something flickering behind his eyes. Pain, perhaps, or the uncomfortable recognition that her words had landed somewhere true. But then the walls went back up. This interview was a mistake. The only mistake was your assumption that kindness means agreement. I'm kind. I'm also honest. Those things can coexist. You're the one who can't handle both. Harry walked toward the exit, then turned back for one final statement. You know, Jennifer, I came here because I thought you'd be different. I thought someone who'd experienced struggle would understand mine. Jennifer nodded. I do understand struggle. But I also understand that struggle doesn't give you permission to treat everyone like an enemy. I've struggled plenty, and I've managed to stay open, to stay curious, to stay kind. You've chosen a different path. That's your right. But don't act like I'm the one who failed here. You failed to give me a fair platform. I gave you every opportunity to share your story. You chose confrontation instead. The cameras caught it all. Everyone watching saw exactly what happened. A host asking basic questions and a guest treating them like warfare. That's not my failure, Harry. That's documentation. Harry's face contorted with barely suppressed rage. You'll regret this. Jennifer smiled sadly. I doubt it, but I think you will. Not because of anything I've done, but because you'll watch this back and see what everyone else sees. A man who can't engage with kindness without suspecting it. A man who's so convinced of his own victimhood that he can't recognize genuine interest. A man who walked away from a conversation because he couldn't control it. She paused. That man isn't happy, Harry, no matter how many times he says the word. Harry turned and walked off the set. His footsteps echoed through the stunned silence until a door slammed in the distance. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Jennifer turned to face her audience, her expression a mixture of sadness and resolve. Well, that was unexpected. She took a breath. I want to say something to everyone watching. That was not the interview I wanted to have. I came in here hoping to connect with someone who's clearly been through a lot. I wanted to understand his perspective, maybe even find common ground. She shook her head slowly. What I got instead was someone who couldn't engage with even the gentlest questions without treating them as attacks. And that makes me sad. Not angry, sad. Because somewhere in there is a person who's hurting, and he's built so many walls that no one can reach him anymore. The audience murmured sympathetically. I'm not going to trash him. That's not who I am. But I will say this. Kindness and curiosity aren't threats. Questions aren't attacks. And if you've reached a point where you can't tell the difference, that's worth examining. She paused, her famous warmth reasserting itself. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll have music from someone who actually wants to be here. Don't go anywhere. The audience applauded, not the usual enthusiastic response, but something more supportive, more sympathetic. They were clapping for Jennifer, for the way she'd handled an impossible situation with grace. The interview lasted 23 minutes before Harry walked out. Its impact would last considerably longer. For Jennifer Hudson, it was a demonstration of what she'd always believed, that kindness and honesty could coexist, that warmth didn't require weakness, that asking questions with love was still asking questions. For Prince Harry, it was something else. Proof that his defensive stance wasn't working. Evidence that even the warmest host couldn't reach him through the walls he'd built. Some battles you win by fighting. Others you win by refusing to. Jennifer had refused to fight, and in doing so, had shown exactly who was willing to engage and who wasn't. The cameras don't lie, they just record. And what they recorded that afternoon was a woman offering connection and a man running from it. What do you think? Was Jennifer too kind, or did Harry deserve every observation? Who would you want to see on her show next? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like this video to help it reach more people. For more explosive celebrity moments,